Hello and welcome back to Podular Modcast. My name is Tim Held, and this week we have Václav and Václav from Bastl. We're going to talk all about the Neo Trinity, the new module from Bastl. And before we get into this chat, I'm actually going to show you a little patch that I made using the CV Trinity, as well as the wave transformer from Earthquaker Devices, the circuit tracks from Novation, which I am really enjoying. Using the Aikido from Bastl, as you know, I absolutely love that module, and I'm also using the Strega from Make Noise. And within that patch, I'm going to show you how I use the ES9 from Expert Sleepers to do my multi-track modular recording. But before we get into any of that, I want to remind you that PATCHWERKS is still running their GoFundMe campaign. There's a link in the show description if you would like to help support PATCHWERKS, keep PATCHWERKS alive and going. I would appreciate it because I don't want our community up here in the Pacific Northwest to lose our hub. So once again, PATCHWERKS is looking for help on GoFundMe, so you can visit that link in the show description. I also want to let you know that the featured artist segment of the show is coming back, and I set up an email address for those of you who are interested in having one of your tracks featured on the show, and that email address is podmodsub@gmail.com. I will put a link to that in the show notes. Also want to let you know about some exciting news. The new issue of Waveform is out now. If I haven't really dug in yet, however, there is a really big feature on one of our sponsors, Expert Sleepers. Pretty cool picture of Oz from Expert Sleepers playing the saxophone in there. So yeah, it's just so cool that Waveform is still going, still producing print magazine. So if you want to get in on that and support a really cool endeavor, once again, a link in the show description. I'd like to say thank you to 4MS, After Later Audio, PATCHWERKS, Signal Sounds, Expert Sleepers, knobula, and Bastl. Holy hell, that is a lot of support, so thank you so much. Links to all of their amazing stuff in the show notes. If you would like to support Podular Modcast, head over to patreon.com/podmod. And I think that about covers the business end. Let's get into this demo really quick. All right, let's take a look and listen at the Bastl Neo Trinity, the Earthquaker Devices wave transformer. I'm going to be using the Aikido dynamic mixer very heavily in this. The ES9 from Expert Sleepers is my interface, so every single voice of this patch has its own track, so that's really useful. Be using the circuit tracks as my clock to clock the Neo Trinity, as well as drums and some other synths, and then that will be controlling the Future Retro 777. So let's check out the foundation of this here piece of music real quick. So I'll be pushing play here on the circuit tracks. And then I've got this pattern view, so I've got all these different patterns I can switch between. I'm going to mute our synth voices here on the circuit tracks and bring in the 777 from Future Retro, monophonic analog bass synth. I've got two different sequences that I'm going back and forth between on the Future Retro. So here's one, and then the next one. Cool. I'm also using the circuit tracks to tune everything. So I've already tuned the Future Retro to the circuit tracks. So let's get into the wave transformer here. We'll just listen to one of the voices coming out of this. It's being heavily, actually, let me take this stuff out. So you can hear it's a little out, so I'm just going to tune that. And then What I have going on here is I am sending the sync output from the circuit tracks into the clock in of the Neo Trinity, and if you're watching the video, you can see there's a million cables coming out of this thing. It is, let me just make sure I'm actually being accurate here. Other than one of the envelopes on the Strega that's only really doing anything on the Strega, the Neo Trinity is the only modulation source in this patch, and that's gonna become way, way, way cooler here in a moment. So let's just turn this on real quick. I have set up the channel F output on the Neo Trinity to the CV part here, and then I have quantized it to be in key with the song on the circuit tracks. So now when I turn the rate dial on the Neo Trinity, that channel F output is going into the 1 volt per octave of the wave transformer. So that's pretty fun. So we can do a little jam. So that's pretty neat. Let's check out some of the other outputs that I've got. So right now what we're hearing here, that is the complex output from the wave transformer, and this giant transform knob is what is, you know, making that really interesting waveform sound here. I am modulating that with the CV Trinity, and we'll get to that in a second. And then the second output I've got from the wave transformer is what they call the rectangle output. So let me turn off my modulation on the Bastl Aikido real quick, and then I'll turn off the pulse width modulation. With no modulation, we've got the pulse width knob here, and then I can add some modulation in there. So I think that's pretty cool. And then I'm bringing some modulation into the Aikido for the VCA aspect of it. Give it some rhythmic stuff. That will become more exciting here in a moment. And then I've got the sub-pulse output from the transformer going into channel 3 of the Aikido. And then finally, we've got the Strega coming into channel 4. Bunch of stuff going on with the Strega. I'm actually running some of the voices from the wave transformer into the external audio input. But let's get into the meat and potatoes here. Oh, and I'm also, I've got this same 1 volt per octave that's going into the wave transformer, going into the Strega. So let's just get 2 of these voices going real quick. So you might be thinking to yourself, okay, cool, you can control the melody there with the knob, but you don't want to sit there and just play the knob the whole time, right? Well, you don't have to. So let's get a little thing going here. Now, all I have to do is hold down the record button and start turning the rate knob on the Neo Trinity. Now I've got a sweet melody going. So let's bring the other 2 voices from the wave transformer back into the Aikido. And I will turn off the future retro and the synth voices on the circuit track. So that's just the wave transformer and the Strega being controlled by the CV Trinity, or the Neo Trinity, excuse me. And what's really cool about the Neo Trinity is not only can we do that recording deal with our quantized melodic output on F, but we can actually do some recording of rate changes. So let's just listen to our rectangle wave here that's being, the VCA is being modulated as well as the pulse width. So there's that. And then I will go to channel E here. That is our pulse width. So let me turn off the modulation on the VCA. So I can change the rate. So actually, let's get this going again, and now let's record some rate changes. And now let's turn that VCA back on the Aikido, and we will change the CV, the rate of the LFO that's controlling that VCA. So that's pretty fun. Let's bring that sub back in and let's modulate. Let's change the rate of the LFO that's controlling its VCA channel. All right, cool. So let's get the Strega going in here. So I'm using one of the LFOs to control the blend here. So we've got just the synth side and then the affected side. So I'll put that back in there. Now let's mess with that time. Oh, I actually like that, so I'm going to leave that. Now, one final trick here that I think is pretty cool is some self-modulating here on the wave transformer. So I'm going to take the saw output, and I'm going to put that into the shape insert. So what the shape insert is you can use any external sound source to go into the wave transformer, and then the transform knob will then change the shape of the wave that's coming out. So I'm actually going to hook the guitar up to it at some point. But so yeah, there's the saw input going in there, and that's with nothing going into the shape insert. Once again, put the saw in there. It's a slight change, but I think it's pretty cool. And then with the hard and soft sync inputs here, you can actually get some really, really cool results. So I'm going to run the output from the Strega into the soft sync. Another small but cool change. Now I'm going to run some audio modulation from the wave transformer itself into its linear FM input. Now, let's bring in our Future Retro. We'll go back to channel F. Let's just get rid of our recording and make a new melodic line. Double click the record button to get rid of that, and we'll just do another. It almost sounds like a wicked guitar solo. And that's that. Let's get into our episode. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Václav, it's good to see you again, and it's nice to meet a new Václav. I'm saying that as right as I can say that, right?
Yeah,
Like,
you're
Yeah.
you're doing great.
thank you. Um, so I've had one of you two Václavs on the show before, but let's get to know our new Václav here today. So, uh, can you introduce yourself and say, how you got started with Bastl and what your role there is and everything?
Yeah. My name is Václav Mach, and I've been working in Basel for about 2 years, maybe 2.5 years. And my main focus is on, I'm a developer, and my main focus is on like uh, digital development and like programming microcontrollers, but also a little bit of like product design cases and so on.
Okay, cool.
So mainly like user interface stuff.
Oh, great. Well, that's something that I definitely want to talk about today. That's one of the things in my mental notes. But I'll put a pin in that, and we'll wait till later. Can you give a brief kind of back history to how you found yourself in, maybe imagining electronic music, a love of electronic music, and making either instruments or your own music? How that led to where you are now?
Yes. So like I've been always interested in the electronic music since I was a child, kind of, or like a young teen. But like I was mostly working as a programmer, like Spyenberg. But then I got like, because I'm from Brno, I got in touch with Bastl people, like all the musicians and so on. And yeah, and when they were looking for somebody to somebody like some developer, yeah, I just jumped in. It was like a no-brainer because like I was doing my own electronics projects, but it not at this scale, and it
Mm-hmm.
was like nice to be part of that, like the whole process and the whole like community around it.
Yeah. So you obviously knew about modular and everything before you started working there. How did you first find out about modular, and how much were you using modular synthesis before you started with Bastl?
Like I get to know it like from Václav, from Bastl, because like
Yeah.
here from Brno, like the community, like it started like 10 years ago, and I kind of like was there, and I went to the shows and was like trying it out and so on. So like thanks to the group of people here in Brno.
Oh, cool. So you've seen like the whole arc then of Bastl, because that's something I also wanted to talk about today. It's just, I mean, when I remember when I got into modular and everything was new and mysterious, there was really one brand in particular that really stood out because of these really cool wooden panels. Um, and just to kind of see these, you've maintained your well, from my perspective, you've maintained the design aesthetic, the spirit of Bastl, but you've kind of just slowly been changing form factor, and your design and everything. So that's cool. So you've been part of the, at least not working, but at least have seen that trajectory.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Um,
Václav is one of those people. I've met him at every single show I went to. And I knew him first as somebody who always takes pictures. He's a great photographer too. So I always saw his like photo reports from events, and yeah.
oh, cool. Um, I don't know if I told you this, Václav, the last time you were on, but
Mm.
when I first got into modular, so I had a couple friends I had basically three different friends, all independently trying to convince me that I needed to get into modular. But I didn't have much money at the time, and I didn't quite understand it. Like, my friend who makes guitar pedals, he works for, owns Recovery Effects. He gave me a module of one of his, his pedals that he had converted. And when I got it, I was like, wait, how do I plug this in? What do I do with this? Do I need a box for this? And he's like, oh no, you need like a power supply. And so basically my first modular rack was, I got like a happy ending tip top kit, and I had 3 modules in it. I had the knit rider, I had the grandpa, and then I had my friend's like, it was like a fuzz distortion thing. So like with just those, there wasn't much I could do, and I was like, I don't understand this modular thing. And I ended up kind of not getting further into it for a while. And but one of my biggest regrets is getting rid of my wooden panel grandpa, because I did really like that thing. I just didn't have really the knowledge or other modules to control it. But do you guys still make that? I was looking for it the other day on your website, and I didn't see it.
No, that one is discontinued.
Yeah.
Went to the graveyard. No, I mean, we've been slowly discontinuing the older generation of modules, and the ones that we felt confident in, we kind of redesigned them and put them in the new panels. But it's we're basically the whole let's say design language, and also the ideas behind the modules and the user interface just got into a place where I think it's, I don't know, a bit more self-conscious and like better designed. And some of these older designs, not that there were like bad modules necessarily, but I think that what we do now is just, the next level.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that up too, because not that I have a lot of experience with your older stuff, but I was thinking about it last night, kind of just in preparation for this conversation, but also because I've been using your guys' modules a lot lately, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, Bastl might be the company. Like, if I was told you can only have modules from one company, you build a system, but you can only have one company's modules, I was like, Bastl might be my choice for that, with all the stuff you've done lately. And I have to say, like, the Aikido has, that's what I call a forever module. That's like one of those modules, and it's so like elegant and simple, but is so powerful. It's in almost every single patch, and it just, I love that module so much. And yesterday I was actually recording a podcast, and the little the 3.5 to quarter inch adapters that you put on your studio headphones, like, I couldn't find my quarter inch to get in my interface, and I'm about to start recording this episode, and I'm like, I don't know what to do, I can't find this thing. And then I was like, oh, I had Bestie sitting right here. I was like, oh, I'll just use Bestie. So I plugged my Bestie into my interface to be able to hear the guest, which I thought was like, oh, well, that was nice to have that solution sitting right here that's battery powered. That's just super easy. So that, and the basil, which we haven't talked about that on the show, because I believe I had you guys on the first and the most recent time to talk about soft pop. So we have quite a few things to talk about.
Yeah, totally.
Also, I don't know who was all on the email chain when we were talking about this, but I saw you guys start promoting Neo Trinity, and it was all, a bunch of Matrix thing, and of course Neo and Trinity. I don't know if you know this, but I'm releasing a module with recovery, or not with After Later Audio. So hopefully within the next couple months. It's been done forever. and it's been named and done for over a year, and it's called Keanu because it's a matrix mixer. So, so I actually have them sitting right next to each other because I was like, actually, this because it's a matrix mixer that has onboard modulation sources and that are normaled to each of the inputs, so you can break those normaled inputs. So I was like, oh, these actually might play really well together, and they do. I made a really cool patch last night with because I also just got the wave transformer from Earthquaker. So using the CV Trinity and the Keanu just all together was like, it was. I feel like I could get away with just those two and not need any more CV and like pull off a good set with it,
Yeah, totally. It's
So
the best combo, like name
yeah,
wise.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of always fun to like name modules for us because like we have like a cinnamon filter and there was like a
Uh-huh.
lot of food related stuff, that you can add a bit
Yeah.
of cinnamon to something and add some basil to it and
Uh-huh.
so.
Speaking of names, this came up. I was watching the other night. I have the Criterion channel. That's like my favorite like place to watch movies. And I saw the movie Ikari XB1, and I was like, "Is that? I wonder if that's where they got the name, the
It
inspiration
is.
for the name. Is it?
It is, yeah.
Nice, nice.
That's
That's so
great you
cool.
saw it. I don't think it's that. I didn't know it's that well known, but it's the early electronic music from Czechoslovakia back then. Uh,
Yeah.
the soundtrack is amazing. It's like this future jazz.
Mm-hmm. I didn't finish it. These are like my art house movies, artsy movies that I watch after my wife goes to bed.
Mhm.
So a lot of the times I'll watch a movie in like portions, so I still have to finish it. But I was watching it and especially with older movies like that and sci-fi, even more. I like to try to like put myself as best as I can into the like the context of the time that the movie came out in, and I was like hearing the music and I was like, this had to have blown some people's minds, like, because to us this is just, we hear this stuff every day and it's been expounded upon for years, but then
Yeah,
like these were all new sounds, and yeah, it was cool, and that's what made me think of you guys. I was like, oh, I wonder if that filter is named after this movie, and I was like, I bet it is.
yeah. There is even like little X Bastl one on the Icaria. It's like when there is the branding of the module, there is Casper Bastl and there is X Bastl one, like XB1 for Icaria.
Oh,
So
cool.
there is this little like Easter egg, and also there is like some star constellations, and
Oh, cool.
I
That
think
is so awesome.
one of them is Fox because the composer's name for the movie is Zdeněk Liška, and Liška is a fox.
Oh, okay. That's so
And
cool.
I can't remember what the other star constellation is, but there is a lot of like these Easter eggs within this module. And
Man,
it was
that
like the soundtrack is really mind blowing because I think it's like late 60s, but it was made in the communist bloc. It was um, really separated from the Western synth market, and there basically was nothing. And there was this research institute for radio and television in Prague, and there they like made a few synths, and they even made a modular synth in the early 70s called
okay.
Čísly zvuk. That was pretty wild, and but I think this was even before that. So they really had to use a lot of like lab equipment, like Heinbach style type
That's kind of what I
electronic
was
music. Yeah,
picturing as I was hearing
yeah,
this music. I was like, yeah, and this wasn't just somebody at like a modular synth. This was somebody with like one of those big oscillators that has like just the one frequency knob on it or
yeah,
something,
totally.
like
And then they use a lot of acoustic instruments, but in a way to make them sound as alien as possible. So
Yeah. Well, that's a cool connection there too, because that's been my goal for the past year or so, and I finally feel like I'm starting to like kind of get good at it. Just doing guitar, kind of like punk, thrashy, kind of metally almost guitar through modular, but trying to make it not sound cheesy because like a lot of metal music is pretty cheesy, I think. Um, but I do like a lot of metal too, so I'm not trying to talk too much shit. But yeah, the movies from that era, um, from like all the Czech movies are there's so many good ones. My Criterion list is full of them. I just watched one called I think it's called The Cremator. That one was fucking weird. Have you seen that
yeah,
one?
yes, of course.
Is that like a classic? Like that's like
Yeah,
everybody knows that over there because
yeah,
that's
it is a
obscure
classic.
over here to a lot of people. And then I started one called The Joke, but then I fell asleep. But my friend
Mhm.
tells me that's one I really must see. Um,
Yeah,
is
they
that my
are kind of
phone?
classics now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what one thing I really liked about what I saw of that Ikari XB1 movie is there's a level of like, speaking of cheesy, like there's a level of cheesiness to old sci-fi, especially the American stuff. And I was as I was watching it, like the set looked similar to a lot of these really cheesy American sci-fi movies, but I felt like just the way they were talking to each other and just I don't know, it just seemed like it was closer to the real way that people would probably interact, and it felt like it was better, maybe not real because it's still a movie, but it just felt like better writing really and
Mm.
execution of these ideas. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Sorry, I'm like a super movie nerd. Um so again, I'm gonna have to do what we did in kindergarten out here in grade school. I'm gonna have to call you Václav P and Václav M. Um, Václav M. You mentioned earlier, like the UX design being like a real big part of what you do. So I just want to say right off the bat, well done, CV Trinity. When that thing showed up, and then I looked at like I'm still figuring it out, but when I looked at just like the cheat sheet that it came with and then the manual, I was intimidated and I was like, how the fuck am I going to learn all this? But then, of course, once I start looking at everything, I'm like, okay, yeah, there's a lot of button combos and stuff, but they all make sense. It's like once you kind of use it a couple times, like you don't have to like really. I imagine for the first week, if you're using it regularly, if you have that cheat sheet with you, you might, reference it sure every once in a while. But I think um, it's one of those things where it becomes pretty uh, just kind of natural. And I know that
Yeah.
it was designed with playability in mind. So can you kind of speak to that and just lay out the process of like how did you guys land on this and like all these ideas and all these different functionality in such a small module? Um, yeah.
Yeah, like the original idea, we wanted to make like a new version of the CV Trinity, but like
Mm-hmm.
more compact and with more functionality and like better sounding one. And so the actually Václav P did like first sketches and first layouts, and then like over probably 2 years of development, we like made it into this one. And yeah, we basically like the last year before release we just spent on the panel and like adding features, removing the features. But like our final goal was it to make so the Neo Trinity makes sense as the complete device, as like complex as it is. So we like removed a lot of features which were like hard to reach. And yeah, we did a lot of testing, like 20 people tested it. So
Uh-huh.
that was like very good experience.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, Václav mentioned that it's a successor to the CV Trinity module, which is a bigger module. I don't know how many HPs, 12 or 14, that we used to make. And when we made that one, it was like the layout kind of looked nice, but then when we experienced using it, that's what informed a lot of the features on the new one. So a
That
lot
makes
of the
sense.
people were never using like the inputs. Like on the old one, every channel, that it's also 6 channels, and every channel had a dedicated input. But when I saw patches that people made with it, they maybe used 1 or 2 inputs. So
Okay.
that was kind of like the first thing to kind of get rid of. And there was also with like in the LFO mode, you were selecting the different wave shapes with a knob, which is not the best way to select the shape. And there was like a lot of these kind of half-baked solutions, but I still think the old one was really fun module in a way that it it like we were like rethinking a lot what modulation is in a modular synth. And I think with the new one we actually landed on something that really kind of makes a statement, like this is what modulation could look like.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is this more old school way of looking at modulation in the modular synth, and that is that like LFO and VCO are the same module.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's also in the name. Like LFO is just the
Yeah.
slow VCO. But if you, and to a degree that is true, but if you approach both with more of a musical context in mind, you have to arrive at a very different designs. Whereas with VCOs, you need to be, or at least we've made the pizza VCO, the complex oscillator, uh, like the things that you wanna touch on a VCO is mostly like kind of wave shaping, changing octaves, stuff like that. And yeah, like when we designed the VCO, we took like the idea of a complex VCO and kind of reduced it and kind of removed the knobs on a VCO that you can't touch. Otherwise, it's just gonna start sounding
Uh-huh.
awful, because most, you know, that's yeah, working with complex oscillators. That's just like that. Really,
That's
there's just
so funny. There's
you
so many
really
modules that I've owned that, sorry to interrupt, but there's just so
you
many modules that I've owned that do have those knobs that I never have a need for that particular knob, really.
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
biggest one on most VCOs is like the chorus pitch.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's the only knob you can't ever touch, otherwise you
Uh-huh.
get out of tune. Of course, if you play experimental and it's like free floating
Mhm.
thing, definitely it makes sense. But like if you try to do something a little bit more melodic or musical, then like that's the knob you should never ever touch, and it's the biggest one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's so funny. I was talking with Morgan McWaters from Warng the other day, and we were talking about, he was like, I don't understand why the coarse knob is always bigger than the fine tune knob. That doesn't make sense to
Exactly.
me. And I was like, oh, you are so right. But yeah, there's a few that, like, if you go to adjust, say, the FM, attenuator or attenuverter or something, and it's by the giant coarse tune, that's dangerous
Yeah.
territory there to be, especially in a live show. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean that's kind of how we approach the tuning process on the pizza also, that the main knob is either switching octaves or detuning uh, the built-in oscillators. But to get to actual tuning, you need to long press to get to like a level deeper, because you kind of need to tune it once really. And
Yeah.
then, I mean, if you try to do something melodic, and so that was kind of like the process of like narrowing down like what oscillators where and like what they could be, like
Hmm.
from the user experience perspective, really. And for modulation, which is like huge topic in general, as I said, like, just approaching LFO as a slow VCO is just like not gonna cut it.
Right. Yeah.
Because I mean, with modulations, a lot of the stuff what you want is to, like, let's say, sync it to the tempo or work in some sort of like a rhythm domain. And with, let's say, analog LFOs, it's hard to sync them perfectly. You can set like reset pulses, but
Yeah.
that's like really, like, I don't know,
That's just
barbaric.
resetting the. Yeah, yeah. Like, yeah, that's not putting the actual wave shape in time. It's just restarting it in time with everything else,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then it also like clicks and pops if you're modulating like a VCA or anything like more sensitive. You basically run into problems. And so, like, we still like use the like classic terminology like LFO, envelope, and what's the third one, CV mode.
Hmm.
But what we kind of mean is more like LFO is like the cycling modulation that you can like sync to a tempo. An envelope
Hmm.
is more of the like triggered rhythmical event
Hmm.
modulation, and these are like established terms.
Hmm.
But I think better name for them could be kind of like cycling and triggered. But
Hmm.
like, it's kind of hard to communicate it with few little letters on the panel, so we settled for the traditional names anyway. But
Yeah.
I think each of those like modes on the Neo Trinity kind of rethinks how modulation could be done and what you actually like, where you want to take it. And
Hmm.
it takes a lot from working with groove boxes. uh, I'm
With Groovebox. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I've used a lot of like the OPZ and a lot of electron boxes, and it is informed by how modulation is done on these machines that are kind of more, let's say, composition or music programming focused,
Yeah.
but like also like adapting it for a modular format. So it's
Yeah.
kind.
That's so interesting because this is something that I've been thinking about a lot in context of modular design and just where it's going from here and everything. And I do wonder, like, I wonder how many like purists out there are like, well, that there's no point in having that this or that in modular because the point of modular is to build everything from scratch. And it's like that was the point of it when it was built, and that's a great aspect of it, and you can still do that. Um, but it's become a popular form factor for music creation. It's inherently fun. It's very tactile and physical, and because space is limited due to the power in the cases, and it's sometimes prohibitively expensive. It just makes sense to you know do exactly what you're describing, like, because not everybody out there who wants to make music wants to, like, you know dive in and understand everything about wave shapes and like, just there's a lot of complicated stuff in there that you don't need to actually know to make cool music. So yeah, I'm happy to see um what you guys have been doing, that arc that I was mentioning earlier with Bastl. um like, I think, is it the last three or wait, has it been like the last five modules? Have they all been this same size, kind of on the same
um
platform? Let's see, like, isn't the wave shaper, you have like a wave folder, wave shaper thing that's
yeah, we
like
have the
this, right?
Waver, Icaria, Pizza Oscillator, the Basil, and now the Neo Trinity. They're all 8 HP.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have the Aikido, which is bigger, but yeah,
Oh yeah, the
most of.
Aikido is a little bigger, but that makes sense because that's kind of like,
Mm,
that needs to be that size for a very specific reason. And I know you can chain those together, and so like
yeah,
that one's a little bit more of a specialized thing. But
yeah,
so
um,
obviously this is intentional. This 8 HP kind of same.
yeah. I mean, it's like it's it's a good size for fitting enough jacks and making the controls really playable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has been like the main focus. So really, and also you can like strike a good balance of like how many jacks and how many knobs and how much complexity you can get out of it.
Yeah.
So
So sorry, you guys. I set an alarm, and every time I feel like I'm turning it off, I'm just hitting snooze, so it just keeps going off. Sorry. Go ahead with that one again.
yeah, so like one thing that we started doing is those angled faders, and
Yeah, I really like that. That's cool.
so I mean it looks cool, but
Mm-hmm.
also like on the filter on Icaria, the angled fader is a resonance, and then you have the big knob that's for the cutoff, and you can really play it with one hand. So you can like
Oh, right. Yeah.
use these fingers to tweak the cutoff and use the thumb to adjust the resonance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's really like kind of designed from the ergonomy perspective. And on the oscillator, the diagonal one is the wave shape. So yeah, and it's I don't know. 8 HP just seemed to be a good choice for a lot of stuff. It's like it gives you a lot of complexity, but I mean, everybody who knows Bastl knows that we tend to make like compact modules,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think we do it at the cost of playability. I think that always comes first.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think it's really cool with Neo Trinity because it's like like a performance based, like that's kind of like this miniature control surface with all these different functions. Um, all the jacks are at the top. Perfect. I love that. Oh, there was something else I wanted to say about. Oh, I think what's really cool. You just reminded me because I remember thinking this when I got Basil because I think you'd mentioned that in the manual for Basil as well. You could mess with the two knobs, the slider and the knob. Um, I think it's really cool that your design, inherent into your design, is a reminder to synthesis that sometimes the coolest or best or most fun, at least, source of modulation is yourself. Not
Totally.
necessarily
Yeah.
sending something in there, but actually playing it, because it can be kind of boring playing modular
Mhm.
shows if you have set it all up to kind of just play it itself and everything. So I think it's really cool that you're encouraging and designing around this very like like what's the word I'm looking for? Just like the physical interaction, like you're actually interacting because you can build a patch for hours and interact and then stand back and watch it play, but now it's kind of its own thing. So to give this kind of connection between performer, artist, and the piece of music, I think is pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, go ahead about stuff.
Yeah, I think it's like the part of the Bastl modules that they are very playable. We are not using like many like encoders and displays there. Like it's intentional to have like these like small buttons and knobs because
mhm.
it allows you to play it like real time. Of course, you can when using a encoder, you can set the precise value, and you can go through the menus. But it kind of it's a little bit like a small computer there, but we want to keep the
Yeah.
like the analog feel of it, kind of.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm actually trying to think. I don't know other than the Mordax data, which isn't something that you play, which you like. It's just mainly my
Yeah.
visual feedback. I don't think I own any modules with a screen. I
Then
have in the past, but yeah, because I
mm,
think that can take you out of it, a little bit. So, um,
yeah, I also think so. And like you said, this thing about like playing with your hand. That's your source of modulation, and I think that's at least how I kind of prototype. I just like try to move it and see how it responds, and that's kind of
mhm.
like gives me the first idea how I want to modulate it. And
Yeah, yeah,
so then like the most like logical and almost to me like the most essential modulation source is the knob recorder. That
yeah.
is
I'm
like big
excited to dive into
big
that.
big part of the Neo Trinity. So like whatever you're doing with your hand, then you can do it with the knob recorder, and with the other modes you can like take it a little bit further, do it like more complex. But
Mm-hmm.
it showed with the original CV Trinity and now with the Neo Trinity that like the knob recorder is almost like the most important mode,
Mm-hmm.
and the other two are just like a bit more refined for certain types of modulations.
Mm-hmm.
But it's this like automation or parameter locking type of workflow that I think this module is really like bringing.
Yeah. And what I really like about that too is, again, with the UX, like this is all in theory. I haven't done this yet because last night I fell asleep on the couch with a little skiff with the Neo Trinity and the manual. But I was, going through it and like, oh, okay, that's cool and that makes sense. But with the CB record thing, seems pretty simple to be able to record something, mute that recording, or just like take that recording out totally and just make a new one. And that speaks to me for like, oh, you can jam with this thing.
Yeah.
Like you don't sit there and set it up. Okay, now I'm going to the next module to create the next piece of my, my set or my piece of music here. I got to, okay, this is all dialed in. This one is like, that could be, I mean, I imagine this was part of the idea, but like just going through the manual and messing with it with the little that I have since I got it, this could be kind of the control forge or like the hub, the what do they call it, the cockpit or something of your set. You could kind of control the whole thing and the dynamics and speed and just like, yeah, everything. Also, I love all the CV, like the quantized modes. So like it's also a sequencer, like a pretty cool sequencer. Like that's wild. So sorry, I had to unplug this. I have to show somebody because I'm pretty excited about it. But have you seen these? The Future Retro 777. I just got one of these, and it's kind of like reminding, like I got so into modular for so long that I forgot that, like, oh yeah, there's music gear out there that's like way easier to use in once you understand modular. So I'm like starting to incorporate that. But let's go back to UX design, because like I said, it is laid out. It's all I've plugged something into every single jack, and I can still access everything I need to access really easy. And these days, I play with a lot of modules, and that's usually even before like sound or appearance, like UX, like how easy is it to understand and use? That's kind of one of the first things I look at, and this is really, really well done. So I imagine, like you said, it was taking like 2 years. Is that what you mentioned? You guys were working on, everything. Like, what were some
Like
of the most
the whole process, 2 years. Yeah.
right? Yeah. But I mean, I imagine like understanding what you want it to do, functionality wise, is one thing. But then once you have that decided, the whole challenge of UX, like, is that, I guess I just assumed that, but how separate are those two processes? Which one's longer? Are they totally different? Are they so interwoven that you can't really separate them? One more difficult than the other? Or...
I think I would say with this module, the most difficult was to come up with the interface set of rules that fits both LFOs, envelopes, and the CV recorder. So we need to come up with a framework of control that works for all of these, and and so that they share like a common way of controlling, and then that you can also do like all the things that you want to do, because they are quite different types of modulations, but you have the same set of controls for them. And I think like coming to the control structure that we came up with, also with the automation of the knob and the triggers, that I think was like almost seems like the main thing about this module, and it took a while to figure that out. But once we got it, then it was really about kind of fine tuning the. I mean, we spent a lot of time on the panel design too, and how to like communicate with like very simple symbols, how you like, I don't know, change envelope shapes and LFO shapes and retriggering and ranges and like all that stuff. And I think we succeeded, although like these are like very different types of modulation. So I think
Yeah.
that was the hardest part. Yeah.
I hadn't even really thought about it from that perspective, but now that you like lay it out like that, that that just like I already thought it must have been pretty complicated and like maybe an arduous process, like really difficult to actually get it all laid out in the way that you'd like. But yeah, that adds a whole new level. So I guess yeah, so how does this work with you two working together on this? Like what's the communication process? Do you have like regular meetings? Or are you just constantly emailing stuff back and forth or
Yeah, so like we are based in different cities, so like we communicate usually like mostly online, but we have like regular like monthly meetings and like share our ideas and like share the work which we done like in the previous month. And yeah, it's like a communication. I think it works well because like I'm very like technical type, and Václav is more like the designer and like musician. So I think like it's a nice like cooperation.
yeah, that's a good combination too, because I have like I've designed modules. Let's put it in quotes. Like I've come up with ideas, and I'll do like these layouts and stuff. Actually, I'm going to show you guys something. So this is how I quote unquote design modules. I'll take notes for a while in a notebook, and then once I'm kind of like pretty sure I know like what I want it to be, I will do like a painting. And so this is like
Nice.
my early painting of what is now the Keanu. It's not going to make any sense to you, but I mean, it would if you sat down and just looked at it closely, but I'm not going to make you do that. But once it's to this phase, I took a picture of this and I sent it to Lenny from After Later, and I was like, "Can you make this a thing?" Because I don't design circuits or anything. So I guess what I'm trying to say is like, I mean, I know Václav P. You have a lot. You actually know how to do all that stuff, but I think it's cool to have this like a combination of maybe. I think this is an overused, not really useful, maybe pop psychology term, but like left brain people versus right brain people. Like people who are really good with systems organization and technical stuff. Like my best friend doesn't like to read books, but he loves reading a technical manual about something. And
Hmm.
when I read that kind of stuff, my eyes just glaze over, and I'm like, I can't. Like I can't read a manual for a module before I've at least tried to use it, so I have some context of what all this jibber jabber, all these words are. So yeah, I think that's really cool. So what's that like? What kind of things are you bouncing back and forth? And like, do you both have like your own little prototype boards that you're uploading like the newest firmware to, and then just kind of discussing that? Or
Yeah, I mean, so the early phase is mostly drawing in Illustrator.
okay,
So we go through a lot of drawings in Illustrator, and almost the next step is like writing a simplified manual for the thing, and that actually clears out a lot of the things that you didn't think about yet. So when you try to like write it down and explain how the module works in plain text, even before you like implement it, it can reveal quite a lot of the unresolved issues.
That makes
And
sense. I can see that.
yeah, so I think I mean, there is different phases. So, like, you make a prototype, find out something doesn't work really well, and then you're back to the drawing board and you try to refine it. So we bounce the drawings back and forth, and that's not just like me and Václav. It's also like other people from Bastl who are musicians, and also with Casper, with Peter Edwards,
Hmm.
uh, we chat about the designs and. Yeah, so I think a lot of it is really like drawing in Illustrator on my end, and writing in Google Docs, and then once we have like a prototype running, we both have a prototype, and once Slav sends me code, and then we have a more more structured way of communicating with like issue tracker, and every single thing we have a like topic that we try to resolve. And at that point also, like, our early beta testing team comes in, which is mostly people from Bastl, and one guy, John, from Canada now, who's our main tester. And once we have something that we feel like it's already like working pretty well, we share it with the wider beta testing team, and there is usually several rounds of that. So
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that you have such a big beta testing team. Like, I feel like digital is such a double-edged sword because, like with an analog module, you release that and then yeah, you want to make sure that it's not a faulty thing, but like once it's out there, like it's just out there and it does the thing. But with firmwares can update, you can have one little, misprint in a code or something. I don't know about coding, so I'm just, like dumbing it down, but one syntax error or something, and oh, the whole thing crashed, but we don't know why. Now you have to go pour through all these lines and stuff. So I imagine just getting the bugs out once, even if it's working, like if the theoretical concept is all there and you're happy with it, I imagine just working out all the bugs. It just seems like those are inherent with coding anything, right? Is that am I correct in assuming that? Again, I know nothing about programming and coding.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of easier in a way that you can, like, when there is a bug, you can fix it and then release the firmware update. So it's like better in that way, that if it's a bug, you can fix it if
Mm-hmm.
it's like a software bug. But yeah, but when you release an analog module, it has to be like perfect from the start. But it's like
Mm-hmm.
also in the digital modules have to be like good from the
hardware side.
hardware side as well. So yeah, it's kind
Yeah.
of split stuff.
Yeah.
But like when you have analog modules, like you still need to a little bit sometimes tweak them, because sometimes the parts can get like changed between the batches, and
Mm-hmm.
or some are discontinued and you have to find the replacement parts and then like for the next batches. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not like you make a module and like it's done forever. So it's like
Yeah.
constant and like evolution
Mm-hmm.
in a way.
Well, yeah. And then also, I think, but also that is, that's one, you can take advantage of that. And I think I don't know if it was in the Neo Trinity manual, but also, because they're on these digital platforms, like alternate firmwares can be, offered, so can you go through like the newer modules, the current firmware, and then like what are these new firmware options, and because they're all the same design, like are any of them form factor where you can switch between, like
So
like say you have one module but you can just
mm,
upload the firmware and make it become another one?
so this is the pizza module that we have,
Mm-hmm.
and we basically released only two firmwares for it: the oscillator and the delay, the Bastl.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And we're working on more, but so far it's just those two. And then the Neo Trinity is completely different architecture.
I was going to say that one, I can't imagine trying to write a new firmware for because it's so specific, because you were talking about these 3 different modulation sources that are all different. And yeah, okay. That's kind of what I was
Yeah.
getting at. I was like, there's no way this one could have alternate firmware, right?
Well, I mean,
I mean, there
it
could be,
can,
but yeah.
but I think we kind of both have this sort of like a, I don't know, hacker mentality that we kind of, the official firmware is like the alternate firmware, like that anybody would ever want to have, you know?
Well, that's kind of another thing I was getting at. I was like, I sure you could make a new firmware and design it around the layout, but like, why this thing? What else would you want this thing to do? So, so we're already this is flying by. We're already 50 minutes in. So maybe for the last part of this, can we kind of just like go through Neo Trinity? What's on it? What are all like your favorite features of it? You know, basically just really like talk about this creation that you just released to the world that you're obviously very proud of.
You wanna take it?
Yeah, I can start. Like my my the best thing I like about the Neo Trinity that it's like very small, and because like we are a lot of times traveling to some shows and there, and you can like make a whole system, you know, for like in this small case, and you have
Yep.
like all the modulation sources there, and yeah, that's like the size and the compactness. It's like the my like some people are saying it's too small. A little bit it could be bigger, but I think it's like it's biggest or one of the biggest advantages of it. And
I agree with
yeah,
that. Yeah.
and I think like the knob recorder is like the most important thing about it. And then like it all like comes from it. Like the LFOs and the envelopes, they are basically just, you know, the same principle, but like little different take on it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and like the intuitiveness, that's like it's very intuitive for like beginners. We use it
Yeah.
on some workshops, and people like who never touched the modular before, they like have the knob recorder and like made some stuff with it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. Are there any tricks or tips or like favorite uses that you have? Like, is there anything
Yeah.
that particular like that you're like, ooh, this is my favorite thing to do with this thing?
Like the I think the one of the most interesting hacks is using it as a as a oscillator, as a voice, that you can actually push the LFO like into other range, and you
Mm-hmm.
can like have it, you know, as a voice. You can apply VCA on it, so you have, and you can sequence it, the melody and also the envelopes and like triggers. That's
Mm-hmm.
like one of the funny like most fun things to do with it.
Yeah, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I I personally think like this module is a knob recorder module with the extension of and with the LFO and envelope.
Uh-huh.
But it really like the basically the patch that inspired how you control LFOs is from the old CV Trinity, where you could patch a knob recorder into the CV input of the LFO and then control that. And on in the LFO mode, you can like automate the speed of the LFO, and you can have the LFO synced to a clock, so you can like kind of automate which clock divisions it does. And
Mm-hmm.
I think this is like it's like such a musical and musically rewarding way to work, and I almost don't know how otherwise I would do it. You know, to have like synchronized LFOs like do like be sequenced. I mean, you can pull it out with a couple modules certainly, but like you certainly don't have 6 of those in
Yeah,
8
right. Yeah.
HP, right? So, but it seems like a kind of logical way to work, and the envelope generator that we haven't talked about like that much. It's almost like improvement on a trigger generator idea, because
Mm.
a lot of people, and there is a lot of modules that generate triggers that generate rhythm events, but
Mm-hmm.
they're just like these pulses that
Mm-hmm.
you need to feed into an envelope, and you all 90% of the time you kind of do.
Yeah.
So like, why not make it like a trigger generator, but it's envelopes, right?
Aha. Yes.
So
Yes.
so so
Uh-huh.
so this is like the core of the envelope mode on the Neo Trinity, and we also designed this little like algorithmic trigger generation thing where you can like do Euclidean stuff and stuff like that. And then like
And
what you
fills, right? You can
fills,
do
yeah,
fills by the press of a button, and
yeah,
that's amazing.
yeah. It's a really fast way to work, and like typically when you want to have the envelopes a little bit more, if you want to give them movement, you kind of want to automate the decay or whatnot. But like the envelope mode does like all these things in the surface level. So you generate triggers, you automate the knob, and you already have like a great rhythm sequence, and you don't need to patch anything. And you can have 6 of those, or you can
Yeah.
use some of
Yeah.
those for the CVs or the envelopes. But like it's like each of those is, it kind of like takes like, what do you do with the trigger generator? Run it into an envelope. How do you make the envelope sequence more interesting? You automate the, or you sequence the decay, and
Yeah.
it's right.
I mean,
So
there's so many modules that have been built and then like promoted as like, hey, you can do this. You can control all of these different aspects of the envelope or the wave or something, and those are all individual connections. But now you're doing it all with this.
yeah,
You could just like tell it what to do with this
yeah,
record knob.
totally. I
It's
mean, this
amazing.
is not like an envelope that does everything. It's just like a specific way of using envelopes
Mm-hmm.
in a musical way that's just like packaged into like very playable form factor.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's yeah, like this, it's a gestural module. It's for like making music with gestures. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that this type of music making complements really well with the behavioral making of music, which is what modular synthesis is amazing, where every single connection you make changes the behavior of the system,
Mm-hmm.
especially
Mm-hmm.
when you put a lot of cables in. And but I think being able to control the behavioral system in a gestural way, like in a performative way, I think that's kind of where this module brings something fresh.
I
So
totally
it's
agree.
just, yeah, this mode of music making.
I asked you guys that question, not only so the audience could hear it and so you guys could talk about it, but I also just wanted your ideas because I'm gonna go play with it when we're done talking here, and I'm really excited to try that stuff. All those fun like I said, like I just got to the point where I'm like, okay, I know the score, I know what it. Okay, I know what this thing is. Now I need to just like really dive in and start like figuring out how to use it because I've used it on a few patches, but it's all been like very like I try to see as far as I can get with a module before I look up anything about it. That's like important to me because I'm not a manual person, so I have to like kind of get it get my head wrapped around it enough to where I can know where to look in the manual when I need to learn something new about it. Um, but something I was thinking, and this is an assumption, and you don't have to confirm or deny this, but when this thing showed up and I was looking at it, and then just looking at all the functionality and then how it's all accessed, I was kind of wondering to myself, and I became less of a question and more of a, I think this is true, but do you feel like this is like maybe one of, I don't know if I'm trying to find the right word, but maybe one of the most significant or one of the most unique or design, like is this like a special design in the long list of designs that Bastl has done in the modular space?
Hmm. Well, I think in the in the modular context, you are designing these isolated functions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone, we kind of approach like, okay, oscillators look like this. The most successful designs look like this. They have this and that sonic character, but maybe they have like 10 knobs and 6 of them you should never touch. So that was like the process for the oscillator module. The same was kind of like for the filter, and the same is like for the modulation source. So it's like how do like modulations look like and what they could be like if
Mm-hmm.
you did like try to come up with the best possible modulation, like what's the like end game of modulation. And uh and, and of course we have a certain like, let's say, design language and some methodology how we came to this design and to all other like recent designs. And like I still like think that that's the best one I can imagine now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. And when I kind of look at other modulation sources, like I kind of feel like this is the one I need for sure. Without it, I can't really do music. And then there is but maybe a few more that allow me to do like things that I can't do with this. Maybe like a slope generator, like the very classic plane,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because it's so simple and utilitarian, and you can use it for so many things. So, but for everything else and for everything musical, it's almost like this is the perfect one. And I don't know. I feel like it really does contribute to the debate because, or like to the discourse, because I really feel like as designers, we communicate with each other through the designs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So and we influence each other. So like you see how this person figured out how to do, I don't know, a clock generator, or you see how this person did that. And
Mm-hmm.
then through the experience of playing other people's modules, you kind of compile your own idea of how you think things could be done a little better. So yeah, I mean, we can take it as a challenge to any synth designers listening to us. Like, please do it better, because like we'll be all better off if you design a better modulation source, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and like push the game a little further. And that's kind of, this also is the motivation behind our designs, just to have the best that we could think of modules.
Nice. I like that answer. Um, and speaking of, like designers talking to each other through designs and stuff, but I also know designers, talk to each other, and it's like a really open and friendly community. Like, and I can edit this out if you prefer not to say or anything, but are there any particular designers out there that you kind of talk to regularly and have found like a trusted kind of somebody to bounce ideas off who can help you figure stuff out or give you advice or even just tell you like, hey, check this out, I think you'll like it or something.
I mean, the most conversation I have is still with Peter Edwards, Casper Electronics, and
Mm-hmm.
we made a bunch of modules together, and we lived in the same city for a couple of years. So we know how to talk to each other, and he's the person we talk to the most. But there is few other people that I really admire, and I really like what they do. We just don't have like this like ongoing
Mm-hmm.
like conversation. Just like when we meet somewhere, we chat, and it's great. But it's not like we call each other monthly.
Right. Yeah.
That's just with Casper.
Okay. And then I guess and I can edit this part out too, but I'm always curious too, like designers that I respect. So obviously I very much respect you guys. Very much into what you've been doing lately. Um, are there any designers or companies out there that you think are doing some like really cool stuff? Like what are you like who do you have an eye on, and like what stuff makes you excited about like recent designs? Or are you just don't have any time to like look at that stuff because you're constantly
Of
working on your own stuff, which I understand.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we look at stuff. I mean, I think everything Make Noise makes is just like so well thought out and so well designed.
Yeah,
I
I
think
agree with
they're,
that.
and I mean, they've been top of the game company for a reason. That just do like really good
That's what I
stuff.
always say too. I know like some people might think like, oh, well, of course everybody likes Make Noise or whatever, but like, yeah, it's for a reason. They're like all their
Yeah,
stuff, it always works very well and it very well designed. I agree with that. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, especially the digital designs from them, I think are really brilliant. But also the analog ones.
Hmm.
And but also I really like anything like mannequins made whimsical
Hmm.
wraps. It's really more of this approach of like doing like macro on, and most of the designs are analog implementation, which makes it even more impressive.
Hmm.
But like the knobs are, and also like the naming of those functions, it's more of a like this is a musical function rather than a, I don't know, decay knob.
Right.
It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
this is like the musical purpose behind this knob, and this approach is like very close to my heart. Although a lot of the designs that we do as of yet are not that like heavily like macro control based. There will be more in the future that are a lot more macro, but I really, if I pinpoint two, I would have to say these two. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, for me, it's probably like noise engineering stuff, like their digital platforms and like
Yeah.
their interfaces and so on. They are like, I think they're like doing great job.
Yeah. I
So
think
Definitely.
they've got
that's
a
like
really
that's a
cool approach to like
company I
clocks and
like.
stuff.
Look,
Okay. That's awesome. Well, you guys, we're over an hour, and I want to make sure that I give you a little bit of time here at the end to maybe mention something that we didn't cover, or yeah, is there anything we missed?
Mm, I mean, we talked really about the modular stuff mostly, and but Václav also designed the Bastl, or like the engineered the
Love
Bastl
the
mixer.
bestie.
Maybe you can touch on that a little bit.
uh, yeah, like uh, it's like successor to Dude, but it's like something. Something like not just stereo variant of it, but we wanted to make something like a great portable device, and that's how it ended up. Yeah, we like wanted to make it in metal case, so it's like better quality and so on. And like I'm very pleased to see it like on a lot of people's sets and that they actually use it and so on. And that's like the also the idea of Bastl that we have of course like many more products to come and they are in the development which we cannot talk much about, but like they are like there will be a lot of like tabletops and stuff like this, so we
Hmm.
want to keep focused that on that, not just the Eurorack, but we are also developing more like this playable stuff for which people can buy like as their first synth or like stuff like that, that people don't need to like spend like thousands of euros or dollars on like the
Hmm.
big box, but we will be making something which is um, like affordable and easy to use.
I love that aspect. And I can't say enough good things about the bestie. And you're like, it is a tank. It's indestructible as far as I can tell. Because like I throw it in my bag. Like if it's oftentimes a last minute. If I'm going anywhere and going to do anything with audio, I always bring it just in case I run like that issue I ran into yesterday recording a podcast, and I couldn't find the connection I needed. It just and I don't know if you know this, but like a lot of my like focus for my creative output over the past 2 or 3 years has been what I call remote performances, where I go out and I play with my battery powered synth, and the Bestie has just like made that so much easier, because because my case has to be small, my modular case has to be small. Not only for power reasons, but for portable reasons. So not having to have a mixer in the case, like if I'm trying to make a super small case, is really nice. And then the feedback on channel 3 to do the no input mixing stuff is just, it's one of the best sounds I've ever heard. That distortion, it's insane how intense that can get, but like it's not going to do the thing where like, it's not going to get so loud that's going to blow out your speakers or anything, but you can really drive it. And I fucking love that thing, man. So well done.
Thanks.
Well done. Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, thank you guys so much for your time today. Is there anything you'd like to scream from the modular mountaintops before we sign off?
Yeah, I don't know, like just make fun, just have fun with I don't know, making sounds. I think there is like, if I would say one thing is like a lot of people feel like they need to like record and release music, and I'm just like, fuck it, just like make whatever makes you happy. You don't need to release anything.
Yeah. I've talked with a couple people recently about that, and I'm finally at a space where I can do that, because I guess I've lost my ambition for that particular thing. It's more about the doing and doing the creating than having had created and hoping that some praise is going to come your way or something, because it usually doesn't. And if it does, it's not in the way that you expected or wanted it. And so there's much less like expectation and pressure put on yourself if you just approach things have fun. So I agree with that. I like that.
Yeah, just putting it out there.
Yeah, I would basically say the same. Just like, enjoy making music.
Well, it's a great spot to end on. Thanks again for your time today, you guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was fun.
All right, that's our show. Thank you so much to Václav and Václav from Bastl. All links to Bastl in the show description. Thank you for your time. If you were listening today, I guess. Yeah, that's valuable. Time is money, as they say. I'd like to thank all of the sponsors: For a Mess, After Later Audio, Patchworks, Signal Sounds, Expert Sleepers, Novation, and Knobula. If you would like to help keep the LEDs blinking over here at PodMod, head over to patreon.com/PodularModcast. Quick reminder that Patchworks is still running that GoFundMe, so please help out if you can. Link in the show description. The weekly featured artist segment is coming back, so please submit your music to podmodsub@gmail.com. Don't forget to check out the new issue of Waveform magazine that just came out. And I think that's about it. Thanks again for your time. This week's secret word is cardinal. Until next week.